All right. Well, I guess I'm doing these kind of impromptu interviews about my retrospective stories of influence in search of one's own voice.
Hmm.
And after meeting you and working with you now for a few years, I've been feeling like I've been kind of inspired by your music and your your ideas in music uh, and just working in as an artist, as well as working in a field of new media, working with posting and social media for people who need your services. You're able to sort of divide your time, which is probably what you'll have to do for the rest of your life, whether you know that or not. But unless you become so famous that somebody else does it for you,
Yeah, yeah,
which could happen.
yeah,
But then you'll be in a good spot because you'll know how to really direct somebody.
yeah, yeah. Well, thanks for that. Yeah, from your face to God's guitar. Yeah, it'd be nice to.
Well, God used a special guitar.
Oh, yeah, which kind is he
Well, it
using
had
these
two
days?
necks.
Yeah, are they both guitars or is the bottom one like a bass guitar?
No, the bottom one is a what Ravi Shankar used, a sitar.
Oh, yeah, a sitar. Yeah, that's definitely God's instrument. I'm glad we got that out of the way. Yeah.
But basically, what I'm trying to just get a discussion going, outside of my exhibit and thinking about the website. We're trying to bring different ideas about influence, and I just, you know, wondered what your gut feeling is about it, and if it's something that you use or something that you nourish.
Yeah, I think years ago, I took on the perspective that taking in art and other experiences, but for sure art and the medium you're making, as well as beyond, um, it kind of lends your subconscious a vocabulary, I think, that your conscious and subconscious draw on when you're creating in ways that you actually can't plan. You can set an intention, I find, to draw on specific influences, but I think that a more sound approach, if you're trying to allow influences to guide you a bit, I think that enjoying a broad array of art and expression and different types of art, even within your own medium, I think that that helps a lot. And that um, I think that at some point I realized how kind of crucial it is to taking in things that you maybe initially don't understand. And I've thought that if I can kind of hear my way in and sort of find a door into like understanding an artist's work, that that is some sort of a healthy practice and stretches your subconscious or your consciousness in some way. So what I'll do is if I'm hearing about an artist a lot from friends or acquaintances, they're really loving what they do, and I either don't know their work or I've heard some of it and I really don't get it, quote unquote, like it's not resonating with me. I'll at least try to understand it. So I think when I started doing that, that kind of opened my horizons or broadened my horizons. And I think that I don't know if it's coincidence or not, but I mean, I definitely I grew to be more fond of what I was making. I think a couple of years after I started doing that, I think my focus was very narrow on the kind of music I was listening to for a while there.
What
So,
kind of music was that?
um, when I was a teenager in early 20s, something I listened to what you could call um, pop punk or I'm just saying it wrong. Power pop and kind of synthy rock and indie rock. And I didn't listen to many classic musicians. Like I didn't even. This is this was almost an embarrassment. Eventually, was I didn't really even know the Velvet Underground until I was 24 or five, um, and there were just entire gaps of music and culture that I didn't know I hadn't become aware of. So at some point, I grew acutely aware that I didn't know what I didn't know because there are all these hip, people. When you move to Brooklyn or any bigger city, there are a bunch of people with, even more intense tastes maybe than where you were before. Not necessarily, but I definitely came into contact with people who were like, "You don't know the Velvet Underground? Like, what are you doing with your life?" So I would, dig into albums of Dylan I hadn't heard or Velvet Underground, and a lot of current music as well that I just had no idea about. Um, and it went in all sorts of directions. But yeah, early on, I was listening to mostly present day music and music that was really influenced by a lot of older work or even current music. But I didn't have the vocabulary or the knowledge to even recognize that. I, I, I was kind of out of the loop on that.
Um, I'm just curious, when did you actually pick up an instrument for the first time?
Um, I would say at 15. Um, yeah, at 15, I'd say. Um, Technically, yeah, a lot of years earlier, I would tinkle on a piano. My grandparents had a piano, and yeah, I would say that was my first introduction. Was piano, but not really playing per se. Just kind of generally being aware, like, okay, this note is a middle C. These are the other notes, but that's all I knew. And then when I was 14, 15, I wanted to get further into piano, and I remember my mom found a piano in the newspaper for like $200. It was a really nice upright spinet piano, actually, though, and that was lucky. And I just would spend hours and hours playing that. And then around the same time, I got a bass guitar at a party when I was 15, maybe 16. I got it for $20 from a classmate who was just getting rid of it. And yeah, so initially it was piano and bass guitar for me at the
So
beginning.
are you self-taught?
Yeah, I took lessons in piano for a while, but I just didn't really have the patience to practice what I was being taught, unfortunately, and it just didn't gel with me. I learned like very early stages of reading sheet music, but I didn't last very long, and then I would mostly just what I really got into was just writing songs, and I wouldn't always know what I was playing, but I would just write things that I liked and learned what chords were, and learned some covers, I guess, maybe to help understand a bit. That probably helps, and yeah, mostly self-taught, I guess.
What was there other musicians in your family? I mean, your grandparents, you said they had a piano. Did they play?
My grandfather played piano more as a hobby. He was an organic chemistry professor, but he was very passionate about music. He would organize concerts in our town, a small town, but he was the president of our city's symphony, and then he founded a they call it the fine arts series at a college, and that still exists actually to this day. The college where he was the professor, he um, ended up yeah programming concerts there.
What, and he just basically played piano?
Yeah, and he played piano as a hobby, but he was very passionate generally um, about classical music in particular. He would play Schubert and Chopin and Debussy. He had those. I'm spacing on the brand name of the sheet music, but he had those around.
But
I
you
want to
you
say
knew nothing
Drummers.
about you knew nothing about those composers at that time.
I learned it from him.
Okay.
I was around classical music growing up. In terms of knowing from playing, no, definitely not. But it was, yeah, it was definitely eye opening. He would talk about what his favorite composers were and why. He was very passionate about music, and so he shared that with me, which was really special. Um, you know. How about you? What were some of your biggest influences earlier on?
Well, my grandfather was a tool and die maker, and he always made things, and he made my first frames for my pictures. I would take my
Mm,
pictures and mount them on wood, and
mm,
he would help me make these beautiful frames for my photographs. And I watched him. It was incredible. In fact, I'm dedicating the entire show in his honor.
no,
Joseph Sukan, yeah, he was from Czechoslovakia. He was my step grandfather. My
uh,
my real grandfather was Italian, but he died when my mother was two, and
uh,
so we never really knew him. Um, but I went and researched where he was born and where he was from in Cassano Merge, which is in Puglia, Italy. And we found a house, and it was awesome. So it's similar. I mean, it's funny how influence can work in many ways, and one way is just right in front of you, like by your parents or your grandparents or
yeah.
friends, and like the friend who said, what do you mean you don't know?
What do you mean
What do
you
you
don't
what do you
know?
mean you don't know that piece of music? How they
Ah,
did
yeah,
it,
yeah, yeah.
and that sort of put a spark in you.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, that's the thing. It really it it's funny. I talked about discovering what you don't know and digging into it, and I mean that it's like it wouldn't be possible, if it wasn't for these different individuals. Sorry, there's something loud outside. If it wasn't for different people in your life, where friends, acquaintances, family, who pointed out, and it's like it's almost kind of random
Hmm.
or something. It's if you're listening to that, if you're listening to all of those opinions and recommendations along the way, it really changes things.
So
Um,
were you living in California?
No, I grew up in Indiana, and
Indiana.
then yeah, and then I moved to Portland, Oregon in 2012, and I lived there just for a year. And I mean, I can tell you in terms of people who um, influenced me along the way. I remember that year. I remember I played with a bassist named Max, and he pointed out some of the bands he liked. I met a friend named Kyle, who similarly, and Murray. These people are kind of like cornerstones in your developing kind of taste and getting, yeah, just quote unquote getting music or finding a gateway into more music. And the year before, I was interning at a theater called Bloomington Playwrights Project, and the managing director Gabe had very strong opinions on music, and he really did not like the music I was into or the music I was making for that matter. And he was very honest. He was like the only person giving me sincere or sincere and not necessarily positive feedback. And it's funny. I mean, those people who really challenge what you know or think you know. That for me anyway. I mean, they've ended up being really a huge resource, because if you're just surrounding yourself with people who already know, um, surrounding yourself with people who know the same things as you, it doesn't happen as easily.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what do you, does, I mean, now that you're performing more,
Mhm.
do you find the audiences being influential in what you do?
Um, I don't think so, but but I guess it's early yet. I mean, my new music, started playing out just I think really just two concerts pre-pandemic, and then finally got back to playing out. Probably only played, I don't know, one, two, three, four, but probably something like six or so concerts, six, maybe seven, since the pandemic, or since it started, I suppose. Um, so I think I'm still getting the hang of it, but yeah, I'm not sure. I think maybe that, I'm open to that if it feels right. But in terms of what I'm writing, no, I don't think that will necessarily be influenced by live experiences just purely because I don't know. I like to just kind of follow my bliss with writing, and I try to, I may be influenced by, I might be influenced by plenty of other music, but just in terms of what people are responding to, I don't know. Like some people I'll hear, they realize, oh, I need to like put a four to the floor kind of thing. And I don't personally, I guess that doesn't really resonate with me. Um, but I get it. I get, something like that. Oh, realizing that, you know, that makes people dance more or something. How about you? Have you found that you're influenced in some way by people's reactions to your photos?
Well, basically, what the way I feel is once I exhibit something or even show it to somebody, it's no longer mine. I feel it's liberated from me and it's on its own life. Um, so in that sense, I mean, my influence I feel is about um, connection. Some sort of a spiritual connection in meeting someone or uh, reading something that touches me, and it somehow it's many different things. I mean, for some reason I feel I've been influenced, and part of the putting the show together. What I'm realizing is, I've been listening to music my whole life. I've been watching artists, um, you know, um, just people that I meet. It all sort of converges into this goulash, and then I somehow mix it in a mixing bowl, and something comes out. And it's weird because putting the show together, I've invited people in the visual community to basically give me a work of art, and then I would put something next to it and print it both together. And I didn't know how it was going to work out, but I used music as my impetus. I used sort of jazz improvisation
Hmm.
of finding images that would sort of relate to their images or not relate, but kind of look good together. And
Hmm.
somehow it worked.
Cool.
It's working.
That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and I've been
Also,
experimenting actually with this first video that I'm doing of this whole video project on talking to friends and people that I've invited to discuss influence and how they feel about it. And you're the first one.
oh,
So
very cool.
yeah, you're the
Oh,
first one.
oh, that's an honor. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And I've been doing different things. I've been splitting the screen. I've been using just
Uh,
the speaker screen to see what kind of works better. So
mm,
right now I've been on the speaker screen, and I'm going to
mm.
change it to the gallery screen so I see both of our pictures
Oh,
next to
cool.
each other.
Sure.
Um,
Mm,
but
cool.
as a final thought, if you were to share something In terms of influence, what would you like to leave somebody with if they were to listen to this video? I mean, what would you, is there something that you would want to share with them?
Sure. I think I would say to anyone else, because I think this has been the main takeaway for me through experiences relating to influence. I would say to someone else that every artist kind of creates their own world, and that um, kind of ignoring the ones you don't know are a little not even adjacent or barely adjacent to your interests. They might be creating entire worlds that you're kind of missing out on. And I think that it's important to push yourself to understand what you don't understand, and try to figure out what it is you don't know. And in that process, it not only kind of enriches your experience as a creator of what you're creating, but it also ends up enriching your creations in ways that you can't predict and can't control. And it just gives your psyche, your subconscious, your artistic self this vocabulary that it's drawing on through your conscious mind, but in a way that is special and unpredictable. You know?
Very nice, Lauren Berry.
Oh, thank you.
Today is September 6th, 2022. We're both in Brooklyn. You're in Greenpoint. I'm in Borum Hill. And what I generally like to do when I'm doing these sort of Zoom talks
Yeah.
before we say goodbye is I usually like to touch the screen.
Eh,
I don't know if you
yeah.
do that. I don't know if you do
What
that. You just kind of
what
touch,
is that?
like both of us touch the screen.
Eh,
It's a way of
eh,
connecting. Yeah,
it's a Zoom handshake.
the Zoom handshake.
Yeah. Okay. Well,
So I'm going to cut this off.
thanks for having